Our first 2023 annual or quarterly elected officials meeting to order. And the whole goal, Tammy and I were talking about, you know, the need to connect and hear. I mean, usually we all connect, but it's just the latest emergency or the latest business or the latest. We never find out what really happened to Holly. We don't know all those little stories. So suggested that we start trying to have quarterly meetings to let each other know what's going on in our departments besides the emergencies and the things that we're always working on. So, and I don't know what's been done at past meetings. Tammy, anything you could suggest?
Usually we just talk about what we're working on, things that might impact others, or things that we're gonna be working on that will impact others, or
Good point.
just kind of an up-to-date I could use your help on this, or does anybody know about this or that?
Yeah, it's good to know the impact. Like I had an arm wrestling contest planned and now sheriff's out, so.
Well, lucky for you. I am left-handed, but
She's still in. So, let's just go around the table in here and I'll just start right here at the clerk's
All right.
table.
Well, I have been really busy on appeals mostly lately. Well, it's been, and I've got another subpoena for another one that I'm working on today, and I should have most of what I need, and the other things I think we have, so. Unless the PDC can come up with them, I don't keep track, so. We'll be getting all that stuff. We got another one for Pine Creek, so I've gotten everything that I can for that, other than the transcripts. And
When you say we got another one, you don't mean another
The
lawsuit,
Weir.
you mean
well, the
another-
Weir one is
the
the
Weir.
other one. And I haven't done anything on that, but I haven't been asked to do anything on that, so.
Is that, do we know where Pine Creek's gonna be held, or the?
So the West Fork of Pine Creek appeal got assigned to a judge out of Bonner County. The judge is Judge Jensen. She was just appointed to the bench this year. It originally got assigned to Judge Buchanan, but then I saw as of the end of last week it was reassigned now to a new judge. So that judge is Judge Jensen. Haven't seen any orders come from the court yet on that. Obviously, as Tammy mentioned, there is the compilation of the court record that's needed for submission pursuant to the court rules. Tammy and I had a meeting last week and developed a plan of action for that on our end. I also had meetings with staff, had meetings with the attorney to discuss the logistics of timing of the appeal. So we're just plugging away on it, but that's as of the most recent filings in the court record, that is the jurisdiction of the judge that has the assignment as of today's date.
And you have to travel there back and forth, or can you?
So I requested Zoom hearings for the last one. I'll probably be doing the same as long as the judge will accommodate it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then other things, I'm working on all the audits so that I'm ready for the auditors when they come for their first trip, which will be the week of March 13th. And they'll be that whole week gathering information, reviewing information that we have. In preparation for that, I'm also trying to clear up the Silver Mountain legal fee thing. And that was, we received funding from IC's litigation fund to help us through the cost of all of that for those years. And I think we've maxed that out, asked for an extension, got that extension, we still have money that's sitting on the table that we'll have to eat, probably. I don't have that finalized yet, so that's about all I know on that until Tracy and I get together and go through it, and Angela, make sure we've accounted for everything there. And then, I'm really excited to work on the emergency plan. Everybody, yay. And, what else am I working on?
not to interject, but along the lines of the Silver Mountain, appeal issue, know that there were a number of questions that we had in, the last year or so regarding the litigation fund that we accessed from the state to help offset the cost to our county for that. I hopefully am getting myself educated and up to speed to be able to answer some of those questions. I did get a big packet of information to start studying from them.
I did too, I gathered it, so I'll share.
Perfect. Yeah, they sent me everything. This last year, I was appointed to be the new seat for District 1 on that fund committee, so we will have our first meeting for that committee in June. And so getting up to speed on all the procedures and processes that that committee uses for the fund, and hopefully that will enable me to better explain what's going on behind the scenes regarding our request in years past.
So along with that, I got assigned to the Natural Resource Litigation Fund Committee as well, a different one.
Good.
But,
That's good.
so those funds can be used, primarily, I thought of natural resources when I was kind of looking into it, is more like water, you know, things like that, but really it's, roads, pretty much road issues. So consequently, we have two. So I don't know if that will be of any help or not, but we don't have another meeting for a while, so they're just gonna schedule them probably in sometime early spring. So,
Can we use any of those? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if we can use them or not. It was pretty much just an introduction meeting at the IC conference last week or 2 weeks ago now.
But for the legal funds for, Weir Gulch and for Pine Creek, can we use the same thing that Silver Mountain did?
No,
No.
so, what the litigation fund is, in layman's terms, counties that are buying in, put money into a pot that goes into, what is called the, the fund is designed to be for litigation that is based on appeals for tax valuations. And so issues that require litigation but aren't associated with a tax appeal don't qualify.
Okay.
That fund is a very limited fund. It's actually not accessed that often because it's really a finite niche area, but as we know from Silver Mountain, when a county does get hit with one of those types of appeals, kind of makes or breaks the county. I mean, from that fund, Tammy, you've seen the numbers, how much have we pulled out of that fund?
So far, 211,000, and it's questionable if we have 44,000 or 76,000. That's the discrepancy I'm looking on right now.
So in any event, 211,000 that has been given back to our county is a huge sum of money in the big picture. So it's really a blessing for us that this fund exists. Historically, so on that fund, the committee is an appointed committee, unlike some of the other committees within the IAC. And so on that committee, the board is just limited to one representative from each district. That allows for equal representation to ensure that one geographical area within the state isn't disproportionately pulling funds. Our district had been represented by Barry McHugh for a number of years. Barry McHugh is the prosecuting attorney for Coopee County. The unique part about the position is there can only be one type of each elected official at any point in time on the board, which means that for Barry's vacancy, since it came open without other vacancies available, it opened up the door for us to replace him with a prosecuting attorney, whereas if the current vacancy in District 1 would have been a clerk, obviously it would have had to have been Tammy if our county was selected. So Barry had reached out to me before he left office, let me know that he wanted me to take the reins from him if I was willing to accept the appointment, and I told him I would. And so it allowed for his role to just be directly delegated to me without needing to go to vote further. So, like I said, we haven't had any meetings on any submissions because typically in any given year there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of these types of requests from around the state. They're pretty rare and limited, but oftentimes they involve a great deal of money. And so we did get awarded money out of that pot originally. We went back and they provided supplemental funding in subsequent years just because the case had gone on for so long and was so entailed. As you all know, it actually wound up going to the Supreme Court. So
And that 17 is now resolved, right? I've never gotten anything official on that.
yes and no, it's mostly resolved, but it's not entirely resolved yet. So
Okay. We did get another invoice this year
mhm.
for 23. for
And it's not entirely wrapped up. We're done with the Supreme Court. The case has been remanded back to the district court. District court judge is now in the process of making additional rulings based upon what the Supreme Court has directed him to do. So it's not entirely over. We're still gonna have some litigation cost. Obviously that was a great example of a matter that was way outside the scope of typical legal representation for a county prosecutor. So we hired an attorney out of the firm Hawley Troxel. So Rick Smith has been county's legal advisor as co-counsel with myself on behalf of the county. And prior to me taking over here in Shoshone, he was co-counsel with Keisha Oxendine. So that means that he does most of the day-to-day work, and I simply get an opportunity to review all of his work product and legal motions before they're submitted and ensure that they're in the best interest of the county. And he's done a great job for our county so far. I mean, as evidenced by where we're at in the case now. So I think it was a great investment for the county and really a blessing that the litigation fund was able to provide for us.
It would be good to know if we can go back and ask for some more.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I know there's at least 44,000 sitting there
And costs,
that have not been reimbursed.
Okay.
Yeah, they're negative. in that fund.
Tammy, anything cheerful or fun going on?
Yes, I have election in March, so the only thing on it is St. Mary's School District for supplemental levy. And then in May, we're prepping up for the May elections, and they will be cemetery districts, library districts, highway districts, and water districts. So there'll be a lot on that ballot.
Is there a chance we'll get audited for that again too, like we did last time?
We can always, once you've
Okay.
been audited, it doesn't mean you slip off, but yeah, we could get audited again. So luckily our audit was a perfect audit.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
found nothing whatsoever, which was really good.
yeah.
Didn't expect them to, but it was a fun exercise to watch and see what they went through and everything, so that was good. So thank you guys for your help on that too. We'll get our ballots now that the weather's getting better.
Yeah, I told Carol, she's like, the ballots are still down here, and I'm like, once the ice is gone. we'll-"
Yeah, like, nobody wants to pack all over here or roll over here when they're so nasty, so, yeah, so whenever you're ready, we'll be ready.
Okay.
Savannah works, Tuesday through Friday.
Okay.
Probably best then. And then, budget, so my expectation is to have everybody's budgets out to them by the statute date of May 1st, usually I have them before that. And then you'll have 2 weeks to look them over and get back your input for the new budget year. And I'll schedule meetings to meet with everybody and go through them all and go from there. So those are the big things right now, really.
What do you do in your spare time?
So, yeah, quotes. Make
Same
quotes.
quotes I got.
Yep. Make quotes.
Yeah, we saw
A ball.
the final products go out the door over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I will be coming to, now I think I have one more to do, and then it'll be summer and I'll be at my river place.
What's the main theme that you use for your quilts? Is it like
They're
outdoors?
baby quilts.
Oh, yeah?
And a lot of them are outdoors ones.
Nice.
That's what everybody wants these days.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished one for, Mike's nephew who is 4, and it's bugs. He loves bugs. So I had 4 different
Very
fabrics,
cute.
bees with honeycombs, and then one that had ugly bugs, I call, that are beetles and crickets, and then they were
Those are
just
fishing bugs.
Yeah, exactly. And then another one was more snakes and snails and slippery things.
That's cool.
He loved it. It was
That's
pretty
really
cool.
neat.
Yeah. But most of them are just other soft, cuddly fabrics. I love doing girl ones, pinks, and little deer and skunks and teddy bears. But, yeah. Lots
Very
of
cool.
And that's it.
Mr. Allen, any quilting in your future?
In my future. None at all. While a lot of the things that come through my office door are privileged and confidential, so not really ripe to be able to share in an open meeting, types of things I can share are that a lot of what Tammy said is going through her office is things that we're working together on, so I can echo a bunch of those sentiments about the different appeals that she's spending time on right now. Other matters of interest that have come through my office, obviously we've got the outstanding Cataldo Water District matter, so that's got a court hearing this week. So,
Tomorrow.
yeah, we've got a court hearing on that tomorrow. Still trying to find somebody for our vacant prosecuting attorney position, so we've re-advertised now for I don't know what time we're on now. We've re-advertised again. So we've done a handful of interviews. Have not been able to identify the right person yet, so we're still plugging forward. Lots of encouraging words for my prosecuting attorneys I do have in the office, encouraging them to keep plugging away and help will come in the future. That we'll do what we can to find a light at the end of the tunnel, but other than that, went out and did interviews with Gonzaga students last Friday for our internship program that we run through the summer. So we interviewed a bunch of students there. Tonight I've got a Zoom interview with a law student from the University of Oregon, and then next week we'll be doing our interviews with U of I law students. So trying to fill our internship program positions for the summer. For those that aren't aware, since obviously we've got 3 new commissioners, a few years back we created an internship program within our prosecuting attorney's office that's designed to help facilitate a couple of goals. One, obviously it's a way to give back to the legal community, so that's really the selfless aspect of it. Gives us an opportunity for mentorship and training of young attorneys. The selfish parts of it are that it takes law students oftentimes who have no ties to our community and integrates them into our community here in hopes that maybe someday when they actually have their doctorate degree hanging on the wall, they may want to come back and give back to this community by setting up their practice here. So it gives them that establishment, and then it allows them, based upon how many school hours they have under their belt, to obtain a limited law license, which actually allows them to do court hearings and things like that, which can take work off of my prosecuting attorney's plates at a greatly reduced cost, because it's a limited license and not a full license. So you can pay them as a law student instead of an actual attorney. So it's a way to kind of maximize our resources. Obviously, it's a limited position in that we really can only capitalize on their summer months that they have outside of the classroom. So we try to pull them in as soon as they finish their spring exam finals and run them May through August and kind of front load some of our projects that we have to those summer months. So that way we can capitalize on having their services in our office at a reduced rate. And then from the elected, and depending on who the chief deputy is, most schools require the supervising attorney to have at least 5 years of legal practice under their belt, but then there are certain mentorship obligations. So I do have to sit down with the students and do weekly reviews and teach them things and stuff like that. So, but we get that in and give them their experiential learning that they've signed up for, and then in turn they're able to do legal work for our jurisdiction in return. So
So they just do research and things like that?
depends on how far along they are in law school. So if they have 0 to 1 years of law school completed, they are considered a 1L intern, which does not have the ability to practice at all. So they would be doing research, analysis of case law, drafting memorandums, things like that. If they are a 2L or a 3L, which is second or third year of law school, they have the ability to apply to the state bar for a Rule 226 limited license to practice. And then a supervising attorney who has the requisite credentials would step in, sign off on all of their work they're doing, and then they would have the limited license to be able to do some elements of law practice themselves. So,
That's pretty neat,
yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
you bet. One of the many creative ways we're trying to get professionals out here to the valley to call it home, and also help the budgets that government entities have to work within and maximize our resources. So I think it's been a great thing. I know that I can reflect back to when I first came here to the county. We didn't have a program, and most of the counties around us also didn't have established internship programs except for Kootenai. And we were able to utilize kind of their processes and procedures, build on it, and now I would say we've got as well of an established one, if not more well established than anyone around us. I don't know of any other law firms practicing in the jurisdiction here that have internship program. So we're kind of the pioneers of it, and I think it's really helped our county a lot, and also given exposure to law school students, which I think is also a way that we're able to give back to. So
That's right.
That's
Thank you.
Awesome.
Anything fun going on in your life? We got quilting here, you
You're
got just
dying.
law.
Yeah, what do you do in your spare time?
no, I can give you something fun. There's always a glass half full somewhere.
I never heard if the hunting trip in Boise turned into anything good or just fun.
I did duck hunt over the weekend when I was down there for a conference, so we got out one of the weekend days and it was good. Yeah. I say volunteer because it's essentially volunteer. My time to officiate high school basketball. And if you got about 70 officials in North Idaho that do high school basketball. So at the end of every high school season, all of the coaches and admin get together and rank all of those officials, and if you finish in the top 15 or so, you go work the district tournament games, and if you finish in the top 5, they actually send you down to the state tournament, and if you finish in the top 3, you do a state title game. And so I've been blessed the last handful of years to finish in the top 3 every year, and so I did again this year. So I'll be going down next weekend, and I'll be doing the state championship game for our high school basketball down at the Idaho Center. So yeah,
That is fun.
That's really cool.
so there's your fun stuff. That's-
Yeah.
that's,
Glad you have some fun
yeah.
I didn't know we had
Side.
basketball in common. I did that kind of elk hoop shoot thing over here.
Oh, do ya?
So this year we did regionals, districts, and this Saturday we did the state tournaments.
That's
That was
awesome.
really fun.
I remember doing that as a kid. Actually,
Yeah.
went to regionals and state. And, yeah,
So
it's a good time. It's good for the kids.
It is, lots of fun. Good for adults too.
Yeah, that's true.
Refocus on something fun.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, Sheriff.
It's been busy. In between all the calls that have been coming out that are a little higher
priority and maybe a little more dangerous than the average. They seem to be coming more and more frequently, and which is pretty scary. So we've just been working on building foundations. So I'm trying to get the employees more involved in a few things. One of them is, I'm a committee person, so we formed a couple committees. One of the committees is full of veteran dispatchers, deputies from jail, detention, detention patrol, dispatch. And when we have a critical incident, like we just had with the car chase, anything that's kind of above the norm, we get those veteran folks together, we review video, we review dispatch, audio, and we kind of critique how we're doing and see if we need to change some policies, see if we need to implement some new training. The focus right now is safety, 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 and so we're trying to send guys and gals to as much training as we can to get them ready for just anything, really. So we've been focusing on that. Foundationally, we're working on revising our mission statement and our vision. We don't really have a vision statement, so we're going to create one. And coming up with some core values. It's employee driven, so they have a little ownership in who we are and what we stand for, so we're kind of working on that right now. A lot of time's been spent on the ARPA funding, so we got some samples for our padded room for F block. It's not what I imagined it would be. It's actually really hard rubber. I expected something different.
Softer.
Yeah, softer, but it looks really good, and I was really pleased that it came in at a lot cheaper than we anticipated.
Yeah.
So, working on that. We've been working with a vendor, the Guardian vendor, to get that inmate monitoring system going, and that's going to be phenomenal. That'll lower liability. It just like, it's kind of like on Star Trek when you have your little tablet, you know, and they'll have a little tablet, and the tablet will say, hey, you need to go check this cell, and it won't leave you alone until you do it, or hey, this inmate needs this medication, and it won't leave you alone until you do it. Or if you give razors out to inmates, it'll remind you, hey, you need to pick those razors up, and it won't leave you alone. So it's kind of like a fail-safe. So we're working on getting that done. We've been ordering cars, getting the push bumpers on the cars, which is funny because we did get the push bumpers on some of the cars, and then one of our deputies backed into a wall, so.
Backed in?
Backed in. Push bumper did not help. But aside from that, we've been focusing on getting employees involved in the community, so we've been trying to get them to go to games. And it's funny, I'll send an email out saying, hey, we've got a basketball game tonight if anybody wants to go, and we get tons of volunteers, which I'm super pleased with. So they've been showing up, and morale's doing pretty well, which is always a big deal.
We're getting really good feedback, even when I'm out in the community.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
they're
great.
just pleased.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And the teamwork we just heard about this morning, and Jessica came up and told us the story.
Oh, yeah.
Is it, we can work together for our community and get
Mhm.
things going. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try and make it a real point that I want to demonstrate to the public and show them that we are humans. You know, we're cops, but we're people, and that the people who live here or that work here, you know, they live here too, and we go take our kids to the same schools, and we do all these things. And I want to build that trust, you know, and just keep building on the trust that we've established. So that's kind of just been the point. Lance and I have been really focusing on honing in the budget and kind of seeing where things just don't make sense to us, like where certain money's allocated or where it's not allocated. So we're just kind of taking notes and then getting ready for that big budget put together. But yeah, it's been busy, but mostly just focusing on the ARPA things, getting some grants that we have going right now, just kind of working on those, trying to find some more grants. And we've identified that we really need to focus on some search and rescue revamp with equipment and training of our folks, so that's in the wings as well. So.
And for fun, we know you do some dancing.
I do, and I'm really good at it.
Break dancing, apparently.
Yeah, it was very good. And then, yeah, I've got a big camping trip planned. It's a backpacking trip down to the Clearwater. Fish are really big down there. And last year, you know, a group of people at work, we all hiked down. It's like a 4-mile hike down, which is easy. Coming back up,
Yeah.
not so much. But we thought we were super secluded, and it turned out we were camped on like a main trail, and so we had people coming through our camp all the time. So this year we're gonna find a different spot and do some fishing. That's pretty much it. A lot of fishing.
Now, I read an article from Kootenai County where they're having problems with their jail. From jail to staff, they're up to 83% felony prisoners in jail. Is that happening here, and are we?
You know, I'd have to look at the stats because they change so much. Right now, we're not overbooked over there. Our main issue right now, aside from not being able to accommodate mental health, is we get so many female inmates and we just don't have a place for them. Or we had a couple transgender inmates that we have to really shuffle people around to make sure that they're safe, and we just don't have the infrastructure over there to accommodate that like Kootenai would. But right now, I would say our main problem over there is, as far as the jail goes, is the mental health and holding them and just not being able to provide the services that they need, because we're not a mental health hospital, you know. So we're just always thinking. I had a citizen actually reached out to me and offered services in the jail for drug addiction, and I thought that was really great. He works construction around here, and he's hoping that he can maybe change some lives and maybe offer some jobs when people get out of jail. And so we're trying to look at programs that are free or that we can find funding for to bring over there for, you know, yoga or just something to enter some positivity in their life and maybe start changing the future, you know. So that's the other thing that we've been.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, yoga, just because I know a lot of people who teach yoga, but, you know, drug education and, you know, just pretty much anything that'll help them. It's really lacking. That's about it right now.
Mr. Coroner.
Just another day in paradise. I'm like Ben, a lot of my stuff cannot be discussed because it falls underneath the HIPAA. I work with Holly's office, I work with Ben's office, I work with ISP, I work with the feds, hospitals, I work with all of them, so. Right now, month of February is usually a slow month. It has been the last 5 years, but it'll start picking up again. I average about 75 coroner cases a year that are actually coroner cases. I do get called for a number of other ones that are not coroner cases.
What would qualify as a corner case?
Anything that's an unattended death, that they're not under hospice, and they're not in a nursing home or a hospital. But in a hospital, if it's 24 hours or less, being admitted to the hospital becomes a coroner's case.
Gotcha.
Anything over 24 hours have been admitted, it's not a coroner's case, unless they fall. If they fall in the hospital or they fall in the nursing home, then it becomes a coroner's case. I gotta investigate the fall.
Gotcha.
Right now, I believe I've got 2 autopsy reports I'm waiting for. Autopsies have really climbed in the last few years, simply because, one, you know somebody probably died of an overdose, but we don't know what. I've got one that we're still working on, the 3 of us are still waiting. I probably got well over 900 hours into that case, and they still can't figure out what this person took. The John Doe from Kingston, still working on that one. That one's got probably 1,500 hours in. Right now he is in Meridian at the State Crime Lab, waiting for I'm gonna say it right. I sent him to Texas, and they did DNA and everything down in Texas. They sent him back, and then they sent him down to Meridian. And what's the word I'm looking for? Genealogy? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know the technical scientific name.
Right. But they're trying to find.
We're talking
Some-
about the John Doe from a few years ago with the cowboy belt.
Kingston.
Yeah.
trying to find some way to compare him, what do they call that?
It's a genealogy test essentially, but it's designed to track his DNA to ancestors that have
But
similarly
they got an
enough related
anthropologist
DNA.
working on it. We've been fortunate, because everything's been free other than the shipping. Texas was free. The University of Texas did all the DNA and everything for nothing.
Yeah, there's a lot of entities out there that'll
Mhm.
help identify.
And we've got, I went to some training here a couple years ago down in Pocatello, and I believe Keisha went down to it. It's bone identification.
Yeah, she did do that one.
And they are willing, it's the college students, and they actually come out, and if you've got a scene where you just have bones, they will come out and they will, I mean, basically the only thing we've gotta pay for would be their room and food.
What, and they'll process it, or?
And they will process that scene, and they will come in and they'll cut every blade of grass, they'll take and cut every branch, and they will take it down layer to layer. And it's kind of a cool system that they've got set up. I've been told the University of Montana does the same thing, but I like dealing with her. If I've got something, I can just call her on the phone or text her, send her a picture, and she'll tell me exactly what it is.
Off the top of your head, do you know how many overdoses we've had in the last?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah, I can't either, I'm trying to think.
I'm gonna say in the upwards, well over 20.
Yeah, we've
It's way
been
up.
seizing a ton of fentanyl.
Is it mostly fentanyl that the overdoses are, or? are they-
Fentanyl and methamphetamines.
Okay.
And counterfeit Xanax.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just the
really?
last, interaction we had, we seized over 100 Mexi Blues, fentanyl,
Mhm.
methamphetamine.
Which for purposes of educating the county, one of the dilemmas with investigating and then subsequently prosecuting those cases is that Idaho currently does not have a trafficking statute for fentanyl. So when we seize these Mexi Blues, which are the most common form of fentanyl we're seeing, which is fentanyl that's mixed with methamphetamine, we are in a situation where we don't have mandatory minimums at our disposal to help resolve cases, short of expenditure of resources for things like jury trials. And so there is some legislation that's moving its way through the legislature right now, which is designed to help address that. It would put fentanyl into the trafficking statute and provide for mandatory minimums for fentanyl. There is a good deal of opposition from some activists and rights groups who are opposed to mandatory minimums in general. And so really on behalf of law enforcement, I know the State Sheriff's Association has been a huge advocate in working with lobbyists and legislatures on explaining why this is important. I also reached out to one of our local state senators this last week and wrote a letter of support for a recent House bill that's moving through and asked him on behalf of our citizens in Shoshone to support that. But I think that it's important for the reasons that we're seeing here on the law enforcement and the overdose side of things, that we're able to have more teeth in our legislation that involves fentanyl, because it wasn't around when our trafficking statutes were created, and as such it really is a gap in our legislation that doesn't provide for real severe consequences, and so it kind of has become the drug of choice as of recent, and we're seeing it result in a lot of overdoses.
Yeah, we actually buy little pouches for the vests, the patrol vests now, so that they can carry their Narcan with them at all times, just in case, it's crazy. I never thought we'd have to get to that point, 10 years ago, but.
And then on the other side of the prosecution side of it, if I have a death and it's due to fentanyl, methamphetamines, we do have the Lynn bias that we can try to fall back onto, but it's gotta meet certain criterias, and then the federal government will actually come in and take that case, and they will charge whoever sold this person actually of the homicide. So, and we've got, I think we've got, what, one or two of them right now, Ben, that are working on?
I've got 2 that I've referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office as a request for outside assistance in prosecution. I know that one of those 2 they've agreed to take. The other one I'm still waiting on.
Yeah. And part of the problem that I'm seeing is, and I'm sure Ben and Holly are probably seeing the same thing, this stuff's coming out of Spokane, and there's nothing we can do. Our hands are pretty much tied to right here. So, and that's a really good way to fall back on it.
Well, and to your point, you know, we've got the benefit of having a really good working relationship with our federal agencies in this area. I know everyone from the coroner to the sheriff's office, our office. I actually worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office out of the Coeur d'Alene branch before, so it's a relationship that goes back quite a few years, and we've been able to leverage it to our benefit by working together with a federal agency that has much deeper pockets than our county does. The flip side of that coin is, as a federal agency, they're not under any obligation to step in and help at any point in time. And so within their own budget constraints, they analyze their own caseload, and I can speak for the prosecuting attorney's office over there. The U.S. attorneys will say, hey, we can have each one of our 3 attorneys for North Idaho have X amount of cases a year. And in order to keep our numbers where they need to be, because they're not going to overwork their attorneys, we're going to set certain parameters and thresholds for what we're willing to take. And a good example of how that plays out is a few years ago, they were willing to take drug trafficking cases where we had 100 or more fentanyl pills involved in that, since we don't have a statute on point at the state level for fentanyl trafficking. And so they were willing to step in and help us in that area and prosecute it federally if there were 100 or more pills. Based on the last conversation I had with our local U.S. Attorney's Office, they've now raised that number to 500 because they don't have the capacity to take our 100 pill cases anymore, right? So on their end, we're extremely grateful for their cooperation, the assistance they do give us, but it is limited, and it's essentially, hey, we can help this much. And so we've got to understand that, and we've also got to understand the way our laws are structured. All of that falls back on the county, because it really is our obligation. We just have the benefit of having their assistance when they're willing to give it, so. That's good.
And just a couple questions that I get asked all the time. It's, the coroner is more than just going and saying, yep, they're dead. I usually end up, if somebody dies of natural causes, I have 4 to 6 hours into it. Because I will do the background check through their medical records and find out what this person actually had. And here, I know it's probably been 4 years ago, I had a 38-year-old male that died. And they said that he had a heart attack, but he had no heart issues. Died at the hospital. I ended up sending him over for autopsy. He died of a massive overdose of his prescription medications. It wasn't a heart attack. So there's things that I have to dig into. If it's not natural, if it's a drug overdose, those are usually, you know,
Bless you.
I've got some I'm working on right now that I've got probably 40 hours in. So the concept of only 20 minutes is, it's not there.
Yeah, no.
As Holly and Ben can both attest to, that I put a lot of time into these. When I took over the coroner's office, I created a report form. It's 9 pages. I kicked myself for that, but I got a hold of the ME's office in Spokane, and at the time I got a hold of Keisha and had them give me the questions that they wanted answers to, and it turned into a 9-page form.
It's a good way to go about it.
This way I've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. the ME's office gets their answers, Keisha and Ben get their answers. Now I have to fax that to the ME's office in Spokane along with all the other paperwork, so. We are contracted with the Spokane ME's office, and the only, I believe autopsies are now pushing 4,000 a piece.
Wow.
So, you'll see the bills coming in, and that's what they're for. You got the ME's office, you got the doctor, and then you've got, Tammy, what's the other one, the lab? I can't remember the name of
I
it.
can't remember it either.
But they,
It starts with a P.
P-A-M-L? I can't
yeah,
remember.
they used to go through LabCorp and they went through.
Yeah,
Pamela or something.
P-A-M-L,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, right?
Yeah,
P-A-M-L.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
There's a lot that is done in autopsy.
One thing I think I told you incorrectly the other day is I didn't think Rick ever called the deceased, but he does.
Yes,
Especially if he goes up in the mountains and,
if, what I do is if I have a death and there's no family local, I will step out of the house and I will call that family from right there. Simply because I do not want them to see it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because if they're friends with somebody, somebody's saying something on Facebook, I don't believe a family needs to find out a loved one died on Facebook. I do transport. If they've been in a house for a while, they'll go in the back of my truck. If they're up in the mountains, they'll go in the back of my truck. I transport over to Spokane to the ME's office, when Roger's not available, and I'm just happy when he is. I use Roger Argo as a transport. He's out of Coeur d'Alene, and he'll take him right over to the ME's office and pick him up and bring him back. And I believe that one's, I think he charges like $125.
Minimal, yeah, it's not a very big bill.
No, it's.
Funeral transport services or something it's called.
And then Tammy and I got together, and Tammy had set up with the funeral home in Benoit County.
like,
Both the funeral directors down there are deputy coroners. Probably 99% of the people who pass away on the St. Joe or in Clarkia will be using them. There's no reason to bring that body all the way up here, adding expense to a family. I don't believe families should be paying because I brought a body up here, because they would have to pay to take it back down. So.
Yeah, it's
once-
already gonna be a hard enough time for him as it is, right?
And I just don't feel that we should be doing that.
Who's responsible for the autopsy? Is the family responsible for the autopsy or
The county
the
is.
county is?
We
How's that
pay-
budget?
it's budgeted in our budget, coroner's budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you
so
just
I
have to
made
do
it up,
a
so we're not
roundabout
gonna get-
figure,
Yeah.
think about how many people may pass or not pass, you know, is that?
This year I'm gonna ask for more money,
Okay.
and it's simply, it falls back on the drugs.
Yeah.
Cause probably, I'm gonna say out of the last 10, I'd say 8 of them were drug overdoses.
And how much do they cost the county for drug overdoses?
About $4,000 for an autopsy.
About $4,000, maybe from start to finish, about $4,000.
Yeah, every autopsy we send over, it doesn't matter if it's a homicide or a drug overdose, it's $4,000. And also, in the state of Idaho, we have a law that says that anybody under the age of 18 has to be autopsied.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
if I have somebody under 18 that gets killed in a car wreck, I have to send them over for autopsy. So,
To kind of tie into that, we've also started putting deputies in schools to do some education on drug education and, well, sexting education, just because that seems to always be a big deal, but you'll see a lot more of that education in the classroom, starting young.
Good idea.
So I had a question on the opioid addiction piece of it and all the money that we're giving to Panhandle Health as well as several other counties. Are we seeing anything yet out of that? It's
Narcan.
been a year, so so we're getting Narcan, but
We got a ton, and that's
originally I
very
thought-
expensive.
Yeah, I thought they were supposed to be providing some mental health programs of some kind, and you guys met with Dawn last week, right?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
Is there
indicated that they're
anything
gonna
that
do
they're actually doing it, or are they still planning everything?
Yeah, they have dedicated people for that.
Here in Shoshone
Yeah,
County?
Lisa Kellogg got this.
Really? Good.
Out of what,
Programs.
I haven't seen anything personally about it, but,
Hmm.
so I was wondering if you guys do.
They
Send
haven't
people to
contacted you?
them, or, I mean, how do they
Mm-mm,
get
I haven't
involved,
been.
or,
I'm gonna,
I think it's something we should know, how they engage them, and how, what of our funding is going to it, and is it enough?
No, I think that'd be great, because the main part of as far as the jail goes, I wanna try and set these folks up for success when they leave, you know, and if they don't have services, it can help them get on the right track, it's just difficult for them.
Right.
Who is, which Don are you referring to?
Nobody. Must be
yeah, just
interesting
help
to-
us do.
Yeah, and I know we met with them when the prior board, committed to giving the money to them. It was 19,000 the first year. I don't know what it is this year. But every year it goes up, and there are a lot of counties that are doing that, so I know part of it is they have to show, and document what they're doing with that money that's supporting the counties. So I'm just curious if we get any. And
And
what
like,
is the impact of it?
Well, I know that when you have conversations with inmates, you know, when they're in there, they're sober usually, and we've had stuff sneak in, but, totally different people. And then they don't wanna be addicted to drugs, like, they don't want that life. And I think that, you know, I think a lot of cogs are turning to get them back into it, but I think having services available is just one more thing that might help them steer clear of it.
Right.
Well, and also on that note, that was a question that I was asked is, why don't I do drug classes? Well, it's not my position to do drug classes because they do drug classes in school, and it's not the high school kids that are overdosing. They are anywhere from 20
Why would
to.
a coroner put on drug classes?
They're from 20 to, and I had one as old as 77 years old that are overdosing on methamphetamines and fentanyl. I can tell you, I mean, anyone in this room can turn around and go, I can tell you exactly what somebody's gonna say when you knock on the door and try to talk to them about not using drugs.
Doesn't take them.
Exactly. But that, I mean, they can do it through the jail.
It just doesn't seem like something that would be under
No,
the
it's not.
umbrella of the coroner's office.
It's not. And then the court system, when they send them to, on a rider or prison, they have drug classes there. I've seen people that, I've spent 30 years in law enforcement, 16 years over here in the jail as a jail administrator. And I've seen these people come in there, they'll do the drug classes. When we offered them back then, we used AA and NA. They would do them, they would find God, and within a week, they're back in jail because they're on drugs again.
Yeah, I think where it falls apart though is that they get the support they need in here, and then as soon as they're free, there's no
support.
there's
to
no
continue
support.
outside.
Yeah, and it needs to be a continual.
Yeah, and at the time, they had the NA and AA, they used to do it right over here at the Wallace Waterfall. And then it kinda went away too, so.
So we do have a number of support classes in the community. I think where we're most efficient based upon the information that I have access to is we're really lacking in treatment providers, individuals that could provide one-on-one and group counseling. And so when you're lacking that individual counseling component specifically, your risk of recidivism goes way up. To circle back to your question, Tammy, and I'll put a side note that next time we do have a meeting with Dawn, I'd love to be included in it. The vast majority of public entities did opt to send their opioid settlement funding to Panhandle Health. That was based primarily because the reporting requirements made it cost adverse for the public entities to try to maintain those monies. And so, I mean, almost every single public entity that I know of sent their funds to Panhandle Health as kind of the one public entity that agreed to step in and say, we'll create a system and a program that does enable us to manage the reporting requirements for this funding. There are a couple of difficulties there. Obviously, when we gave it all to them, we gave it with the understanding that technically we're relinquishing the rights to it. Now, Panhandle Health has said, we're gonna try to take the funds that have been given to us by each jurisdiction and find ways to funnel it back to that jurisdiction. But the ways to funnel it back have been difficult to explore because Panhandle Health as a government entity is greatly limited on their ability to obtain some resources such as hiring of clinicians that can provide the services. So they've set up some collaborative networks to say, hey, we'll help assist with this one agency or this one business that provides services out in Kellogg, for instance. But the ability for them to go out and hire another clinician that can actually provide services is kind of hamstrung to a large extent because they're bound by state governed contracts, and what they are able to pay in one jurisdiction has to be stable across the board. So I was in a meeting with Panhandle Health just this last week discussing this issue, and that is it's difficult to try to convince somebody to come out to Shoshone County, set up shop and establish a business with no clientele base for the same amount of money that they could live on Lake Coeur d'Alene, work for an established business, have all of the administrative I's dotted and T's crossed for them, and essentially have the same job. And so it's been difficult for them to hire clinicians in rural areas of our state when they're bound by state wage tables and they're really limited on their ability to just go out and hire. And so when we look at how do we get services here in Shoshone County, while there is a giant opioid settlement fund that Panhandle is overseeing, and I don't want to misquote, but last figure I heard, I think it was in the tens of millions total that they are overseeing. It's a huge fund. Their ability to actually put those resources back out in the community are kind of limited in that the communities themselves have to kind of step up and put the plan of action into place in order to request those settlement funds as reimbursement. And so when these funds are used for reimbursement and the counties aren't out there setting up their own treatment facilities, the opioid fund is kind of limited in its ability to give back to the jurisdictions. So when we look at the opioid settlement fund, we look at Panhandle Health's numbers for how much of that fund they've distributed, it's very, very little to date. Most of the money is just sitting in the fund waiting for the right projects or resources to be used. And I think that that's part of the dilemma that we're going to be having to look at long term, or we're going to fall into the big group of public entities that just aren't going to use the funds, right? We gave them to Panhandle Health, and we're not going to be proactive about doing anything to get those funds back. So.
Yeah,
need to
that's a
look
very
into
valid
that.
point.
Don did say when he was here, because they'll come back quarterly, that if we have suggestions for it, to present to them, that they're happy to do that. And those girls' names were Kelsey and McKenna.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who oversee the program for the worker stuff.
Well, and without sharing too much information before I have a plan in place, I have been meeting bi-weekly with Kelsey and McKenna for a couple months now. So I'm working on something. It's not far enough along to pitch yet, but we're working on something. We're trying to get those funds back for us, and I think we'll be one of the first counties to potentially submit to get funds back.
Good,
Awesome.
very good.
Anything else from the coroner's court?
No, I think I covered all I want.
Okay. You didn't tell us anything fun.
Fish and hunt.
Yeah.
I went fishing yesterday.
Oh, really? Catch anything?
Had a bunch of perch up over all.
Nice.
I finally took some winter safety.
Did you? Oh,
I
good.
just don't think I can pull the trigger.
Yeah. It's hard.
I might start with some grouse.
Yeah,
Start
you
there.
go.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's
Birds are
okay.
always fun.
turkeys after they mess on your lawn. It's easy.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, if you're an avid fly fisherman in the summer and you enjoy alpine lakes, a slingshot does not put much weight on the backpack. You can
I
have
carry
some
one.
really good
I
grouse
carry
over the
one,
campfire.
I'm yet to pull the trigger, but I have one, but now at least I'm legal.
There you go.
Well, Jeff?
Other than being 5 weeks in and still learning, a lot of reading, a lot of interesting things going on. The budget coming up, I'd really like to understand the budget more, the budget process, so that I can make good decisions. And that's probably about it.
So I had a question of all of you guys. What departments, are you individually assigned to a department now, or how's that working?
I don't think we really individually,
Well, like I'm kind of liaisoning with Public Works
in the airport.
and the
Okay.
airport, which I've been accused of being the manager. I think that's wrong terminology, but,
We're all, I guess we, I kind of misspoke on that, we're all the boards of management, basically, of the airport, because we have to have some sort of a manager, so,
yeah, for record.
for record. Yeah, did they used to do that in the past, did they?
Well, when I was at Kootenai, all the departments had a liaison to the board that they worked with primarily, and it worked really well because then you had a one-on-one you could go to and talk to about certain things, or questions, or if they had questions, come and ask and then share it with the board. It just worked really well, so you knew what the accountability was and who to talk to if you had something, and I was just curious on that, so if I had a question on the airport stuff, I would go to Dave to talk about that, or something else, like right now I'm working on a lot of, public defense stuff, and I know Tracy did it before with the public defense for the contracts and stuff, and those are things that I need to know for the subpoena that I have, so.
They'll have the public defense contracts
Oh,
now.
okay.
The chair, I believe, is the one
But
who
the
has.
chair's willing to share.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jeff?
Not really,
Do you have any fun
I
in
saw
the
you where they were.
not really.
Not really.
Yeah, well,
Like the last 2 months?
I guess, I went out to the airport and helped Max with the door, I kinda like work with my hands, and that gives me a little relief. Did injectors this weekend on my pickup, so.
There you go.
Nice.
So
That's kind
got
of
something
therapeutic
useful
for me to
done.
work with my hands instead of my head.
You must have a heated shop somewhere.
No, we
Oh.
do have one, but I did it outside.
Oh, That's a
therapeutic.
cold task.
Well, we are working on learning curve and trying to get out to folks. I think that we have been putting some effort towards maybe providing a little more hands-on management in some areas that we're needing more hands-on management. I think we're looking for win-win situations. I think we've examined the maintenance challenges with the sheriff's office and this building, and we were able to make a deal with Holly's department that will increase the amount of maintenance they're getting over there, which allows us, we advertise, Stuart. So we're advertising for so that we would have 40 hours of maintenance available in this building, and I think that's a plus. This building is getting old, falling behind, and hasn't been touched since I was commissioner 32 years ago. Same paint, same holes in the wall, same everything. So trying to do some things to try and step up the care of this building and the safety building, starting with just manpower, putting more hours on those tasks. And I think this week we're gonna talk more about some other things, like, starting to do some painting and things to try to improve the longevity of these buildings, this building in particular, and I think present a more professional facility for the public coming in. And try and just, we've already got one building that maybe happened to be replaced somewhere. I can't imagine trying to replace this building, so we've got to start putting more care into that. So you'll all be, I sent out invitations to everybody who works in this building. I excluded you, sorry, Holly, but
It's okay.
if you want to be on the hiring of the new maintenance person, because we want somebody who's responsive to everybody. And, really appreciate you working with us to find a way to, I think that turned into a win-win for all
Yeah,
parties.
I think so. I
So,
think it did.
you guys will get 20 more hours a week in theory of maintenance over there, and we'll get 20 more hours a week of maintenance over here than we have. And we all did that within the funding that was already there, so we're not increasing the budget or anything. So that, to me, more supervision. We've been out meeting road departments, dispelling rumors, just trying to encourage the guys. We're gonna try and do more with our volunteer camera help and that, as far as getting out and filming some of the positive things the road crew, Public Works does, and some things in solid waste and that, and getting it on Facebook so people can see before the budget and everything else, they can see what goes into opening up Moon Pass, or, you know, what goes into, and so you'll see the camera. I think, Jeff, you guys went out with the camera and did some filming at the airport.
Yeah.
I think people have kinda gotten into, well, no news is good news, because all you ever hear with the county is, you know, the bad news part, and we're just trying to figure out ways of publicizing some of the good things. That's been the most fun part of the last six weeks or whatever, is finding out all the positive things going on in our county.
Mhm.
And like some of the things you all are talking about, except for Tammy, all she talked about was sad lawsuits.
Audits.
Audits.
Nobody likes
Audits.
audits.
No, but, you know, talking about some of the work that goes in, and helping people in our county understand what goes into the coroner's department, you know, and what really goes into that job, and, you know, looking for solutions to problems instead of just continually hauling people to jail, and,
Mhm.
you know, and just the sheer, I mean, for the moral reasons that we need to help our fellow man, but for the financial reasons, I mean, we're spending so much resources, and for safety of our employees and things, so.
It's good, people know what's actually going on instead of just assumptions and rumors that
Mhm.
always get posted, but they need to know how we actually operate, and we do the best with what we have, and we'd like to do better.
Mhm.
So we've been taping everything and trying to get transparency as far as the community. I've had employees telling me they're watching the tapes at night to see what's going on in the meetings, so I know that's helping. The goal is that eventually we're gonna have a camera system in here in the next few weeks, I hope, that's paid for out of some of that grant money. We're gonna start to publicize more, but I hope you'll all view that as a good thing, cause our goal is to, when it comes time for taxes, that people would already know what their money is going to, and they'd have a better idea of all the, cause I don't think anybody can appreciate all the hours that go into all the projects that we've all been talking about around this table. Just the general public, you're not gonna read that all in a newspaper or on Facebook, you're gonna have, so getting more information out and educating the public. The old school teacher in me says if we could teach the public more about this and find more ways of support. Looking for win-wins. The other day, we had a meeting over the airport. A lady at the airport meeting stepped out to the side and said, hey, we may have a deal going where if we get a bid, we're gonna have tons and tons of regrinds. Well, we have an airport and some places that need regrinds. Would the county be interested in those? So, doing her a favor, finding a place to store regrinds, and now the county gets 65,000 tons of regrinds that we can use for a no-cost paving or replacing. So we're looking for the win-wins, looking to improve, and I don't think we'd have known that if we hadn't been working with the Public Works and knew that, you know, we were short on regrinds in this county. That's just not something you get in your daily education. Oh yeah,
Right.
the county could use more regrinds. So. On the fun side, let's see, I've been too busy, honestly. I go home and sleep at night after all the reading, and I take stuff home to read and then sleep, but we're, my son that told me years ago we might never see a grandkid, cause he just didn't think kids were all that much fun, is finally announced our first grandchild from his side of the family, so.
Oh, congratulations.
So, number
Congrats.
8 is on the way there.
That's fantastic.
I'll put in my order for blankets, but I was also seeing, with those pads being so hard, maybe we could do some quilting over in.
Perhaps.
in the
Nice,
cabin.
have a relaxing scene.
Maybe some snakes and
Yeah.
snails and slippery things, or, you know.
Yeah.
I dream about those.
Pink elephants.
There you go.
All right, teammate, what's up?
Well, you took a lot of what I had to say, but that's.
Oh, man.
No, I think we're doing good. I like the report that working together
Mhm.
with all the officials for doing the right thing.
Makes the journey a lot easier.
It sure does, yeah. Other than that, fun. I was gone back in January for my oldest daughter's first grandbaby.
Mm.
She's a month old now.
Cute.
She's coming this week, but now I'm just trying to figure out how soon I can get back over there.
Oh,
That's what I was
right.
gonna ask,
Right.
when's the
That's
next?
the hard part, yeah.
Yeah.
Every day she gets pictures like she grows so fast.
Mhm.
Mine moved back to North Idaho, so that helps.
Yeah, I got one here eventually, but I'm pretty sure they're not gonna move.
Mhm. Yeah, that's tough being away from family, especially when there's newborns involved.
Yeah.
Because they grow so fast.
Weather's starting to get nice, it'll be easier to drive, so.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
well, good
just-
for you.
Okay, anything else? Would you like to add a comment? Since you have to sit here and take notes on everything we all say.
I appreciate all of you.
We appreciate you too.
Very
Because
much.
she just had her, what was Friday? She had her, what month?
3 months.
Her 3 month, and she's still with us.
I've stuck around, you guys are a
Really
lucky bunch.
appreciate that.
Lucky.
Yes, we
I
are.
do like that.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to each of
Yes,
you for
thank you.
taking time to come. And it does help to know what you're all working on, because I was in a meeting with Jessica and we talked about needing regrinds, and then when that other lady mentions regrinds, I'm on it. So now when I know what you're all working on and you know what we're working on, maybe we can find ways to, like, you know, if I find another coroner doing drug classes, I'll tell.
Remember that.
Yeah, so,
Perfect.
well, thank you,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
Whenever the next one's scheduled, I'll send everybody an invite.
All
The
right.
goal
sounds
is
good.
quarterly, right? Is that what we were talking about there? Is
Mhm.
trying to do quarterly.
Quarterly's perfect, I think, because you can accomplish some stuff and
Maybe next
come back and
meeting-
report to it.
Maybe you'll be on the other arm next meeting.
Maybe if I fall down the stairs anymore.
No more of
Please-
that.
please
Is that
don't.
your fly fishing arm?
No, no.
Meeting
Almost.
adjourned.
That would have broke my heart. I never
Yeah,
thought of it
that-
until you just said it.
That
Did you
would've
see
been
the fear in my
terrible.